was such a great friend, constantly making me laugh.
I will forever cherish those memories I shared with him.
I'll always remember you as an irreplaceable gift to my life.
A Massachusetts family was hiding knives in their home because they were worried about their teenage son's behavior. Then one Tuesday morning, prosecutors say that same teenager was searching online and using ChatGPT to explore scenarios involving the killing of his family. Hours later, his mother and younger brother would be dead. The teenager would disappear in his mother's car. And before sunrise the next morning, police would find him nearly 20 miles away. Now, 17-year-old Arjun Aravind is facing 2 murder charges. But this case is raising questions far beyond what happened inside one Massachusetts home. What happened between the first warning signs and the discovery of 2 bodies? What happened inside that house on Martha Lane? And what exactly do investigators say they found? This is Law and Order. Here's what we know. It began Tuesday, August 11, in Acton, Massachusetts. Acton is a community about 30 miles northwest of Boston. Inside a home on Martha Lane lived a family that, according to Aravind's defense attorney, had recently moved there looking for better schools and more support for their children. The family included 45-year-old Sudha Venkatesson, her husband, and their children. One of those children was 17-year-old Arjun Aravind. Another was his younger brother, 14-year-old Siddharth Aravind. And by the end of that day, both Sudha and Siddharth would be dead. But investigators say the warning signs had started before the killings. According to police reports, Arjun's father had become concerned about his son's behavior and internet activity. So concerned, prosecutors say, that the family had started hiding knives inside the house. That detail would become extremely important after the deaths were discovered, because investigators would later find evidence of what prosecutors described as a violent struggle. But first, we have to go back to the morning of August 11. According to Middlesex District Attorney Marion Ryan, Sudha was last seen alive when her husband left for work at around 7 in the morning. At that point, nothing publicly indicated that she was in immediate danger. But investigators say that shortly before 8 a.m., Arjun used ChatGPT to generate a scenario involving the killing of parents. Then at approximately 9:03 a.m., police say he made another query involving killing mom. Those details came from police information presented in court and reported by the Boston Globe. And this is where the case becomes extremely complicated, because prosecutors are now pointing to those searches as part of what they describe as concerning behavior. But a search history is not, by itself, proof of murder. The meaning, intent, and context of those searches will have to be examined. And the defense has already indicated that it intends to challenge the picture being presented by prosecutors. Now, shortly after noon, Siddharth returned home from a local recreation center. At some point after that, investigators say something happened inside the house. The exact time of the killings has not been established publicly. And that matters, because investigators are still trying to reconstruct the sequence of events. What we do know is that by the evening, neither Sudha nor Siddharth was responding. And that's when the welfare check was requested. A tutor had arrived at the house for an appointment, but the doors were locked. The tutor contacted Arjun's father. The father tried to reach his wife and children. There was no response, so he called police. At approximately 6:37 p.m., Acton police arrived at the Martha Lane home. And what officers found inside immediately turned the situation into a double homicide investigation. Police found 14-year-old Siddharth dead on the first floor near the stairs leading to the basement. Investigators said he had suffered severe head trauma. Then they found Sudha Venkatesson. She was discovered in the finished basement. Authorities said she had significant injuries to her head, face, and abdomen. The official causes and manners of death were still pending the medical examiner's findings. But prosecutors said there was already evidence that a violent physical struggle had taken place. And investigators found something else. Blood in another room. Evidence that appeared consistent with a body being dragged down the basement stairs. And a heavily damaged laptop covered in blood. Police said the condition of that laptop appeared consistent with it having been used during the assault. Investigators also found a bent utensil that could possibly have been a knife. But authorities have been careful about one important point. They have not publicly confirmed the exact weapon or weapons used to kill the victims. And the official causes of death were still pending. So while investigators were processing the house, they discovered another problem. Arjan was gone. And so was his mother's car. A 2014 green Honda Accord. Police immediately began looking for the teenager. They also issued information about the missing vehicle. At that point, investigators were dealing with 2 dead family members and a missing 17-year-old who had allegedly left the home in his mother's car. Then the search moved outside Acton. Hours passed, and around 3:40 the next morning, officers in nearby Wayland spotted the Honda. Inside the vehicle was Arjan Aravind. He was taken into custody without incident. The search was over. But the evidence found inside that vehicle would become another important part of the case. Investigators said they recovered items from the car that corresponded with evidence from the murder scene. Police reportedly found bedding from the family home, large quantities of cereal and protein energy bars, a laptop, a cell phone, and his mother's pocketbook. Investigators also believed the cell phone belonged to Siddharth. According to his father, Arjan had not been allowed to have a cell phone because of previous behavior. And there was more. Police noted cuts on both of Arjan's hands and swelling on his right hand. A Massachusetts State Police crime lab chemist reportedly found what police described as presumptive blood on his hands and the soles of his feet. Again, those findings are part of the prosecution's evidence. They have not been tested in a trial. And Arjan has pleaded not guilty. But investigators were now looking at a much larger picture. 2 family members were dead. A teenager had left the house. His mother's car was missing. Evidence from the home was found in the vehicle. And investigators were examining what prosecutors say was concerning internet activity before the deaths. Then another detail emerged. At approximately 4 p.m. on the day of the killings, police say Arjan went to a Stop and Shop where he worked. According to an employee interviewed by investigators, he purchased more than $2,000 worth of cereal and energy bars. He allegedly said he planned to resell them. Police believe he used a credit card belonging to his mother. That purchase happened only hours after investigators believe the killings occurred. And it raises another question. What was Arjan doing after leaving the house? Was he trying to continue with normal activities? Was he preparing to leave? Was he confused about what had happened? Or was there another explanation? Those are questions the investigation will have to answer. And this is where we need to hear what the defense is saying. Arjan's attorney, Deborah DeWitt, has strongly cautioned against assuming the prosecution's allegations tell the complete story. After the arraignment, she said Arjan did not realize his mother and brother were dead when he left the house. She described him as being in a state of shock. She also said she had not reviewed the alleged ChatGPT research and did not know what he had been researching. And she said the family had been trying to provide him with support.
He's also charged in juvenile court with the stealing of the motor vehicle. He's 17 years old. This is clearly a horrific experience for him. It's an unimaginable tragedy to the whole family, obviously. To say the least, he's very confused about the whole process. We heard a set of facts that just got read into the record. And I think once we start doing some more investigation and based on information I've developed, I think there'll be some surprises. I think he is also a product of maybe a system that's failed him. He's a young man that has some issues, as you heard, and the system, I think, failed him. He learns when he gets arrested that his mother's dead. He can't speak to his father.
He understands his brother's dead.
He understands his brother's dead.
The defense has also requested a psychiatric evaluation. According to his attorney, the family had recently moved to Acton partly to find better schools and additional support for their children. She described the situation as an unimaginable tragedy for the entire family. Because while prosecutors are accusing Arjun of killing his mother and brother, his father is now facing an entirely different reality. His wife is dead. His younger son is dead. And his older son is facing 2 murder charges. That brings us to the charges. Arjun Aravind is facing 2 counts of murder. He also faces 2 counts of assault and battery on a family or household member. 2 counts of assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. Use of a motor vehicle without authority. And theft of a motor vehicle. He was charged as an adult under Massachusetts law. At his August 13 arraignment in Concord District Court, a not guilty plea was entered on his behalf. The judge ordered him held without bail, and he is scheduled to return to court on September 11 for a probable cause hearing. But this case is still at an early stage. There has been no trial. There has been no conviction. And the allegations against Arjun have not been proven in court. That distinction becomes especially important when we talk about the ChatGPT evidence. Because the internet has already turned this into a story about artificial intelligence. But the actual allegations are more specific. Prosecutors say Arjun had been using the internet and ChatGPT to explore theoretical or fictional scenarios involving the killing of his family. Middlesex District Attorney Marian Ryan described the behavior as concerning. But investigators still have to establish what those searches meant. Were they fictional writing? Were they fantasies? Were they threats? Were they evidence of intent? Or were they something else? Those questions could become extremely important as the case develops. And there is another detail that should not be overlooked. According to prosecutors, the family had already become concerned enough about Arjun's behavior that knives were being hidden from him. That means investigators may be looking not only at what happened on August 11, but also at what happened in the days and weeks before it. What did his family know? What behavior had they seen? Why were they concerned about his internet activity? And did anyone believe that the situation could become violent? Those questions may become part of the prosecution's case. But the defense could offer a very different interpretation. And until the evidence is tested in court, we cannot know which explanation will ultimately prevail.
About 6:37 last evening, Acton police received a phone call from the owner of the Martha Lane home. That individual, who is Arjun's dad, was reporting that an expected visitor to the home, a tutor, had gone to the house and had not been able to gain access. That was unusual since she was expected. The father began trying to reach people in the home in a variety of ways. He was unsuccessful in doing that. When he could not reach anybody in the home, he called the Acton police and asked them to do a well-being check at the house. When Acton police arrived at the home, they located 2 victims, Siddharth Aravind, who was 14 years old, and his mother, Sudha Vahankatesan, 45 years old, inside that house. Siddharth was located on the first floor, and Sudha was located in a finished basement area. Arjun, at that point, as you know, could not be found, and it was determined that he had allegedly fled using his mother's car, a 2014 green Honda Accord. There were efforts throughout the evening to locate both Arjun and that car. Early this morning, police in Wayland were responding to an unrelated alarm call at a business. When they went into the parking lot on Andrew Avenue, they located that vehicle, which
Investigators say they found a damaged and bloody laptop, a bent object that may have been a knife, blood in another room, evidence suggesting that a body may have been dragged downstairs, and what police described as presumptive blood on Arjun's hands and feet. They also say items connected to the scene were found inside his mother's car. But the medical examiner's findings are still critical. Authorities have said the exact causes and manners of death were pending. And without those findings, investigators cannot publicly answer every question about how the victims died. That is why the September court hearing matters. More evidence could become public. The timeline could become clearer. And prosecutors may reveal more about what they believe happened inside the home. For now, what we have is a disturbing sequence of events. A mother leaves behind a family on a Tuesday morning. Her younger son returns home around midday. A teenager allegedly makes disturbing searches online. Hours later, a tutor arrives and cannot get inside. A father calls police. Officers enter the house, and 2 family members are found dead. The teenager is gone. His mother's car is gone. And before sunrise, police find him nearly 20 miles away. Now he sits in custody, charged with 2 counts of murder. But there is another side to this story. The people who knew Sudha and Siddharth. On August 19, hundreds of people gathered in Acton for a vigil. They came to remember a mother and her teenage son. Sudha was remembered as a generous, thoughtful woman and a devoted mother. Siddharth was remembered by friends as a funny 14-year-old who made people feel welcome. Friends spoke about his humor, his energy, and the impact he had on the people around him. The vigil included Hindu prayers and messages of support for the family.
To the remaining family members, as their future has been robbed of wholeness and peace.
I always considered myself the luckiest person in the world to have the family I had.
His humor, his energy, I feel like it brought it to everyone in the room and stuff. I'm gonna miss him a lot.
Because behind every murder investigation are people left trying to understand how their lives changed in a matter of hours. And in this case, one family is facing a loss that cannot be undone. A mother is dead. A 14-year-old boy is dead. A father is grieving. And a 17-year-old son is accused of killing them. So where does the case stand right now? Arjun Aravind has pleaded not guilty. He is being held without bail. He is facing 2 murder charges along with several other charges. The prosecution says investigators have evidence connecting him to the deaths. The defense says there is more to the story and has requested a psychiatric evaluation. The medical examiner's final findings remain important. The investigation is continuing, and the next major court date is September 11. But perhaps the biggest questions are still unanswered. What happened inside the Martha Lane home? What exactly triggered the violence? Why were the knives being hidden from Arjun? What do the alleged ChatGPT searches actually show? What happened after he left the house? And what will the physical and digital evidence ultimately prove? Those questions cannot be answered by headlines. They cannot be answered by internet speculation. And they cannot be answered simply because something looks suspicious. They have to be answered with evidence. For now, the allegations are serious. The evidence is being examined. And the court process is just beginning. This is law and order. We don't decide guilt. We don't spread rumors. We follow the facts. We examine the evidence. And when the answers aren't there yet, We say that too. Because in a case this serious, the difference between what we know, what prosecutors allege, and what can actually be proven matters. This is law and order. And this case is still developing.